Hello and welcome to the Prosperity Portal podcast. I'm your host, Jill Alana, and I'm here to support you in everything you need to prosper in health, wealth, and relationship. I'm obsessed with everything manifestation, soul path, intuition, somatic embodiment healing, and I'm looking forward to supporting you in liberating to a life of love and luxury. True empowerment, true sovereignty, and aligned soul manifestation. I'm the founder of Jill Alana International, Jai Activations, and Jai Breathwork. And without further ado, let's go to the show and get you resourced in everything pro your spirit. Oh my goodness, soul-led life is alive. Before we begin this episode, I had to share about soul-led life. So this is a 6-month journey to reclaim the timeline you were born to lead. If you've been following me a while or in my world, in my community, firstly, I freaking love you. I have the best community ever. You guys are so awesome. But you know I have miracles literally every single day. I've been able to heal things like my allergies to horses, healing my eye when I was told I was going to go blind, healing my ACL without surgery. I have manifested so many money miracles, holy provision. This is truly the path where God writes the paychecks, and there is a reason. Now, in this becoming, on this path, I learn soul lessons all the time. I alchemize my deepest core traumas and levels and layers of this all the time. This is the path. And it is the most fulfilling path, okay? The path of the soul is the most fulfilling path. It's the highest aligned path and the most prosperous, pro-spirit path. It's not the easy path because the easy path, the easy choice equals a hard life. And the hard choice equals an easy life, a fulfilling life, a prosperous life. This path is the path of initiations, of growth, and of courage. If you desire to walk this path together, hand in hand, with a powerful community of soul-led leaders supporting you, then soul-led life is your blueprint, your community, your tribe, and your vortex. This is for you if you are ready to step into your power, to embody your purpose, to actualize your potential, and to liberate your legacy, and to actually make an impact, a positive imprint on this planet. This is for those who are ready to reclaim their sovereignty from all the people, places, constructs that you've given it to. For example, claiming your power back from money, from relationships, from accolades, from accomplishments, and making those the cherry on top, the byproduct. Okay? This is not for those who want to maintain a victim to their life, but who really want to become the victor and the creator of their life. During this time, I will be your mentor. I will empower you to find your power. I will share how this whole freaking game works. I will help you anchor into your soul guidance and embody your soul wisdom. You are a powerful being, and I'm so excited to take this journey with you and to support you on this. Okay, so if you're ready to stop being like the majority of people who give away their power to money, relationships, career, accolades, status, accomplishments, and for those actually to be the cherry on top, and for those to literally expand, you will receive more money. You will have more career success. You will receive more accolades on this path, but you won't need them. You won't be dependent on them. Okay? So if you are ready to stop proving your worth and to actually step into impact in your most prosperous timeline and sovereignty in all areas of your life, check out the link below in the show notes. And I am so excited to walk with you on this journey hand in hand on the path where miracles are your norm. They are a standard. And without further ado, let's go to the show.
Oh, all right.
Hello. Okay, welcome back to the Prosperity Portal podcast. I have my amazing friend Didi on today to share her story and codes on divine union. And she told me this story, but I'm sure there's going to be more here on the podcast. So I'm excited for like receiving these as well. She told me her story in LA when we met walking on a beach. And guys, I literally got goosebumps. Like I was so activated. I'm like, this, like they were codes. It was like a whole spiritual awakening. And can I say the thing about the proposal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Let's,
however you feel. I mean,
okay.
I have there's so much. So I wonder if it will even all come up in this one podcast. I feel like there's
Oh,
so much to cover, but
okay.
well,
I,
just go with whatever you feel. Like,
Okay,
yeah.
so that walk, she was supposed to get proposed to on the walk, and intuitively I knew. I'm like, "Do you want me to come?" Like, we met through a mutual friend, and I was just gonna go for my own walk because he was going for a run, and they were like, "Oh yeah," Didi was like, "Yeah, come," and her partner Pete was like, "Yeah," but I could feel that like he didn't want me there. He was gonna propose on the walk on the beach, and then so we later found this out through your post, and I was like, "Oh no."
But it worked out beautifully. It was just exactly how it was meant to happen.
It
Yeah.
was because, well, I'm sure we'll get to this part in the story about the chapel and where the proposal actually happened. But I am off the moon thrilled for you and so blessed to have met you and connected. Guys, this woman is legit, like so lovely, so kind, so beautiful, inside and out, and literally the walking embodiment of the true codes of divine union. And you went on the journey. So I'm going to pass it over to you to start telling the story of like where you were, some important pieces of the journey. Cause I think some people are like, oh, divine union, the journey to that is like so easeful. And just like love and light. But I think we both know on me being on this journey that it is a journey of initiations and tests. And
Yeah.
it's no joke. Like it brings up, you have to meet your shadow and you have to integrate your shadow and you have to like really be um well, I mean the whole purification journey, maybe we'll talk about that with like
Mm.
just dissolving any manipulation and any distortions and anything that isn't true divine love to actually be the embodied match to a true beloved, which is some of personally the hardest work I've ever done.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pass it to you. Would you like to introduce yourself? Oh,
Thank you, gorgeous. Yeah, so yeah, so good. Oh, I've got my little dog Billy's just come over. Typical timing. Bless her.
oh,
So yeah, thank you for having me on. It's so gorgeous to catch up with you. My name is Didi. I live over in Australia, but I'm English originally. And Billy, come down. And sorry, Jill. She's just
oh,
like all
it's
over.
fine. We love dogs. My whole
So
community knows all about all my dogs.
yeah, little Billy, she's a little juggler and she's needing some love. But
Because,
yeah, gosh, it has been a journey, like such a journey. So
yeah,
I am, for context, I'm 41 now. And this, I feel like it all really started at 32, like when it kind of, what I thought was supposed to happen in my life kind of fell apart. So I'd always presented with like patterns when it came to men and relationships. And I was a bit of a party girl in my teens and my 20s. And when I was 32, I think I thought it was all figured out. Like I was in this long term relationship with somebody who I thought was the one. And thought that marriage and children were going to be next. Hadn't really done any work, didn't have any awareness around my patterns.
yeah,
And sadly, we broke up when we moved to Australia. He didn't settle. He left. And I was left in the situation where I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm 32, I'm starting again. Like, what the hell? Like, I had all this shame around it. There was a lot of like patterns presenting again where I was like going out seeking like external validation, drinking, being single, like thrown into the dating world in my early 30s when I thought I'd found the one was really scary. And a lot of like old patterns around like body dysmorphia and like
yeah,
the next day after drinking I would just I don't know, I just all these like just so many fears around like aging and not being pretty enough and it was a
yeah,
lot. It was a lot. And I also loved the party scene and it was kind of like this trade-off. It was like, is this worth it? Like, are the hangovers worth it? Because I
Okay,
would just
wait.
be
Can firstly, you look so much younger than your actual age, like so much younger. Secondly, can we talk about this for a second? I can't believe you're a party girl. I know you've said this. What did
yeah.
you love about, like, what did you love about that scene? And what
Oh,
were like the um yeah, I'm like genuinely so curious.
yeah. I really, there was so much external validation that I was seeking.
Mm,
Like I loved getting dressed up, getting attention from
yeah,
guys. I loved like, like all that thrill seeking. I was a fun drunk too, but it was like
yeah,
a lot of game playing. Like there's
yeah,
just again, like what I now know to be a lot of fear-based patterns from a heartbreak I'd had when I was very, very young.
yeah.
It links back to when I was 15 and I got cheated on, but I
Oh,
had never given that the credit that it deserved. I'd kind of like
yeah.
brushed it under the carpet, even though back then when I was 15, it's now come up that I remember actually saying, I will never, ever let another guy do that to me again and make me feel this way again. And
Oh,
that
wow.
became a seed that I planted for like just years of destructive patterns.
Yeah.
And then I would go like every relationship that I then had, I would have this like really electric feeling at the beginning and think that they were just like the one quite quickly. And then it was like obviously the honeymoon period. And as soon as like things started to settle, or as soon as really a lot of the time, what I realized as well was once they actually fell in love with me deeply, I
Mhm.
kind of lost respect for them because I didn't love myself. So like there were like all
Whoa.
parts within me that I didn't love that I was hiding. And so when they loved me, I was like, you don't really know me, you don't really love the true me. And so like deep down, I lost respect for them. And then I got the ick and then I ended up sabotaging and leaving. So there's just so many like complex things like that I now know were
Yeah.
happening. It was horrible because for years that would go on. Sorry, go on.
Well, I was just gonna say that is so profound because I feel a big part of this path and like what I'm like working on deeper is unconditional self-love, like true self-love. And I just realized I used to do that with like men who actually were like devoted to me. I was like, no, the ick. Like, and I, it's like you can't accept that love if you don't love yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, wow, that's so powerful. And I just realized like that, perhaps this is why like so much of society is in that game and that manipulation and that like it's like there it's almost like like control mechanisms to protect
Uh,
the first broken heart, which that's so crazy. I remember working through an imprint and I remember like my first broken heart so young, and
yeah.
I made a similar vow. Um and it was almost like I always needed to be in this like power position, and then I realized that that only brings the mirror of manipulation. Like goosebumps
Yeah,
from
yeah, it's really interesting. And it's like if you don't love and accept all the parts of yourself, then
hmm
you'll continue to hide them. And then you can't be truly yourself or truly
yeah,
vulnerable, really authentic with somebody. And then you feel like a fraud too, right? So it's kind of like this battle that goes
yeah.
on.
And
So there was
often
just so much of that.
yeah, authenticity is the highest embodied frequency, and vulnerability is the key to like love, like intimacy, into me you see. And I think so much of humanity is like trying to like you said, hide certain aspects. I mean, it's shame, it's the shadow. So like bringing the light to it is like so profound. Anyway, sorry I cut you off. I just like
No, and going back to the partying, I think it was like,
yeah.
alcohol fueled those unhealed parts of me.
Mm,
And they put on more and more masks and, created more and more walls, more and more games, more and more of
yeah.
that authentic version of me. And,
Yeah.
I joke a lot around how I used to be like, I used to pretend I was a player. Like it would give me all this bravado. I'd have like all this like cocky kind of like false confidence, which wasn't really real. Like deep down, there were areas where I was confident, but like there was
Yeah.
actually a lot where I wasn't, and I would hide those and mask those kind of unknowingly with alcohol. So
Yeah.
then it all became a game, like I would act really cocky, and then of course I'm going to go and attract the like one guy in the room that I'm not meant to. and it was like
Yeah.
this kind of like weird like situation that I would then get myself into, which would only ever really fuel those deep fears of not being enough as
Yeah.
well. It's like it was just like, unconsciously I was seeking that confirmation of
Yeah.
that. And again, all of this stuff I just had no idea about at all. And it's taken
Yeah.
years of me kind of peeling back those layers. But obviously a huge part of my journey, as you know, is that the sobriety
Yeah.
aspect. Like I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, that changed absolutely everything for me because
Yeah.
what I noticed was so when I was saying that, the next day when I was hungover, I would just sometimes struggle to look in the mirror and have like all this
Yeah.
shame about potential behavior the night before and just so
Yeah.
in my head about being, like I say, in my early 30s and single and starting again, that I started to really avoid hangovers. Like it wasn't worth it for me. So I ended up taking breaks in my early 30s. And, I call it sober curiosity. I became like really sober curious. And I was also starting like my personal and spiritual growth journey then as well. And
Mhm.
every time I took a break from alcohol, like I just felt incredible. Like I felt amazing. I felt so much more connected. I was starting to see what I now know to be so much divine guidance and synchronicities. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then as soon as I went back to drinking, because let's be honest, everyone does it. It's
Mhm.
my family, my friends, it's really, really hard to
Yeah.
abstain, especially if you don't have like a full-on dependency because you don't feel like you kind of need to. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm only a
Yeah.
social drinker. And
Yeah.
then what I noticed was every time I drank, even though I was doing the work and realizing these patterns that I had, I would go straight back to that pattern when I drank.
Wow. Did this happen even because I know you weren't like, I mean, you were a partier, but then like as you evolved, like it wasn't like you were going out drinking every night. So like,
No, it wasn't like, I was trying to avoid that, but it's like there was always a risk of a big night. And I think that
okay.
if, you know how like we talked about like tests, the amount of tests that there are on this
Wow.
journey, it's like,
Yes.
exes would reappear, like, those kind of situationships that I may have had would text me or reappear. And for me personally, my experience of it is if I've had like one or two glasses of wine and I'm sat at home on my sofa and I get a text message from somebody and I'm feeling a bit lonely and I'm wanting a bit of a connection, it's really friggin' hard to stay super disciplined
Yeah.
in that situation and not
Mm,
entertain that back, even if it
yeah.
is just opening the door slightly. And you can't be in a position where you're opening the door slightly.
You can't.
Like you're on a
Yeah.
journey to wanting what you want, which is, divine union, and you want
Yeah.
that forever partner to build something with.
Yeah.
You can't be letting in the energy of these other situationships that
No.
people that aren't aligned with your future because it's sending out the wrong message and it's,
Literally,
it's taking up space.
yeah. So it's because I teach on like manifestation. So like for people, I'm just gonna like explain this in a way. It's literally like you're sending the universe a message and then saying a different opposite message. It fissures your energy. So the universe is like, I don't know what you want. You're saying you want divine union, but now you're allowing the situationship or ex. Oh my God, I've had all the exes reappear on this journey, and I'm like, what is going on in the weirdest ways too? Um, and it's like, what are you willing to like? Are you willing to settle, or are you actually devoted to this path? Because it is a path of devotion, not just, at least from what I'm experiencing, like it's a path of devotion to God and to our like God, like holding the field with two people. And like I'm not in a partnership right now, but it's like what I started to notice was like when it was like I would, okay, so I see timelines. And anytime I'd be like, oh, this situation, like, and I would say yes, I would like literally, like, when I would look in, that timeline would like dissolve, like the divine union. And I was like, oh, wait. And so it's like sending these two things. And I think this is a really important piece for people to understand because your story actually like really illuminated this for me. I was like, oh no, there's an energy in my field that I'm saying yes to, or like perhaps maybe I'm allowing in my field that's literally blocking divine union. And it's hard because sometimes you're lonely, or that thing is like really beautiful in a lot of ways. But when it's not the full yes and the full, like, this is my my person, this is divine union, and both people have to be ready for that, then you're saying you're basically blocking it. Um, which I think is some of the hardest tests. And I'm curious your experience on this. I mean, I know some of your story, but some of the hardest tests are those that like things that are really great and the cost. The cost is the true divine union, the true vision, what the soul really wants.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many things on that that I could go through. One of them is just like that test is just constantly testing that you've raised your level of self-worth to
Mm-hmm.
what you're actually calling in. And
Yeah.
I always do this thing where it's like, I wanted this. So for the listeners, my hands held up really high. Like I
Yeah.
wanted, I always knew what I wanted.
Yeah.
For those 8 years that I was single, I knew what I wanted, but I was going up and down. And I was like, sometimes I was at that level of what I wanted to attract in, because you do need to become what you want to attract
Yeah.
in as well.
Here.
But then I was dropping down, and it was always when I was drinking that I was dropping down, because I was showing those
Mm-hmm.
conflicting parts.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in full alignment with what I was calling in,
Yes. Yes.
essentially.
Yeah.
And that's congruency, isn't it? And integrity. What's the expression of that? Like behaving behind closed doors, like when no one's watching, in the
Yeah.
same way, actually, and
Yeah.
all of
And
that, and it all links back.
100%. And people can feel it. Like we can feel if somebody's words don't match their actions, even if we don't know what it logically is. Like you said, there's an integrity in our energy field. Um, and then also like, yeah, did you say coherence? I don't know if you said that, but this coming through like the coherence of like, I believe everything's a mirror in some aspect. And so it's like, okay, well, if where are we a match to it, and then what aspects of us are not, and what wounds are running those behaviors, and then really like alchemizing the wounds that are like allowing certain behaviors or allowing certain misalignments in our energy field, and then like becoming that full embodiment, and then that is matched and mirrored um in anything, like any area of life, I would say, but like in this specific context, like divine union being that mirror. So okay, so you're partying and then you notice
Yeah.
that
So, yeah. Go on. Sorry.
yeah, so then you noticed that you anytime you were drinking or partying, certain behaviors would come out that weren't in alignment with where you wanted to go with divine union, the type of partnership that you desired and now have. So then what was like the choice point, or what were the choice points of like, okay, I'm going to give up alcohol. I'm like really going to work on myself becoming the embodiment of this. And I'm curious, like your biggest initiations on that, like, so what the hard parts were, the struggles were that you overcame.
Yeah. Yeah. So gosh, so this spanned over 8 years. So I was 32 when I went through the breakup, had a couple of years of kind of wild partying, which to be honest, I was quite emotionally unavailable anyway. So it was just like that just happened. Then sort of started getting stuck deeper into the inner work around sort of 34, backwards and forwards with, taking breaks from alcohol, backwards and forwards with different kind of like, not lows, to be honest, it was just like a couple of situationships that weren't aligned. And then it was actually after like COVID was really good for me because it kept me grounded. And I did like a lot of like journaling, got really clear on what I wanted for my life. And I was taking those breaks from alcohol. But I actually ended up going back to England. My career enabled me to go back there and work there for 6 months. And when I got back to England, I was surrounded again by like old school friends and my dad who drinks a lot, and like all these old behaviors were kind of like
Mm.
pulling me back, even though I'd made so much, taken so many steps forward, and there's been so much growth.
Yeah.
And it was because I was coming up to my 38th birthday,
Yeah.
and I went out on a big night out, and I ended up doing the exact same thing, getting with the one guy that I'd actually seen on pictures on Facebook, and like I'd been like kind of like drawn to him, even though he looked like trouble. And he was like, it was almost like I'd kind of like set myself
Yeah.
up. And then I went out, like went out that night, drank for the first time in ages, got
Oh,
loose, I got with that guy and
oh
was like, what am I? And he was like, known for being like the player around town or whatever. And I was like, and it was, I was being coached at the time by like my spiritual coach, who's just been
Mhm.
amazing. And
Yeah.
she kind of called me out on it because I had all the, I call it beer fear and anxiety around it the next day. And I was like, what
Yeah.
am I doing? I'm 38. I could see
Yeah.
40 on the horizon. And I was like, I don't want this anymore. Like it's that whole definition of insanity, isn't it? Like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I knew sobriety was so good for me. And I was like, but I still couldn't give it up forever. I was like, I don't need to give it up forever. So I came up with this like decision, this concept, and it was just this deep knowing that if I removed alcohol for a chapter until I was 40 and just went all in on like transcending as many of these patterns as I possibly could without any of that distraction, social drinking, hangovers, anything, start
Mm-hmm.
facing all my fears, start, really, I wanted to discover a deeper purpose for my life too. And that's when I became a coach, created my business, all of
Mm-hmm.
this. But then what I didn't know was I actually gave up on the 4th of July, 2022. And I didn't choose that date, but obviously it's a huge date in the American calendar. And it was the start of this wild like guidance to be in America, in particular, Los Angeles. And by this
Mm-hmm.
point, I'd done so much on that spiritual growth and like had so many signs and synchronicities and was aware that I was being guided, like deeply guided. And it always felt that way more so when I was sober. And that's a big part of my message is like when you remove the booze, like it helps you to connect so much more to everything. You're in a guidance system to God, to
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yes. Sorry, can I?
Yes, go on.
It's so crazy. It's like sometimes, like through this like dating journey, I would be with somebody like out to dinner, and my body would be like, red flag, red alert, red alert. And I'm like, oh, I have anxiety, or like when really my body's like telling me this person isn't safe. But it's like you have one drink and all of a sudden now you're like chill. But it's your body being like, something's off. And it's like that radar system that isn't as clear. I just had like a freaking memory come back, and I was like, oh, that was like literally not, because sometimes we gaslight ourselves and we're like that anxiety or that like hole that we're like, ooh, this is does not feel in alignment. We're like, oh, something's wrong with us because like we don't feel safe. But sometimes it's just, a lot of the time it's like the inner system being like, something's off. And logically we might not know what it is, but our body will filter through so much data without, before the mind can consciously like connect the dots. I just
Yeah.
had the whole epiphany when you said that. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's literally the body keeps the score, right? And again, when you're drinking, like you kind of like wash over that a little bit because it numbs it, right? So you kind of,
Yes,
yeah,
it numbs
yeah,
your guidance.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I now know, just kind of slightly going off on a tangent, but with a lot of the work that I did, it's like so much links back to my relationship with my father. And so I'm an Enneagram 7 for like anyone
Mhm.
listening. Enneagram's like a personality
Yeah.
profile.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a really powerful one because it really shows you like the difference between, like, it's kind of like your ego number essentially, and all like the conditioning and patterns and everything that have happened and formed, in your early years from your primary caregivers and all of that sort of stuff.
Mm.
And I kind of, my number is the enthusiast, and it sounds really great, but what I do is actually I look at things with rose tinted glasses. So I don't give them like the awareness and the acceptance and the reality of what they actually were. And I had a really beautiful childhood. Like I grew up on a farm, like, thought I was very privileged, didn't really feel like I had any right to complain about anything, and so when people would talk about my past, I was like, no, like I would shut that out a little bit, but that was more my character doing that. And so now I've brought all this awareness to so much, and actually there was a lot of chaos in my family. There was a lot of unpredictability,
Mhm.
um, a lot of, yeah, what I now know would have been huge amounts of nervous system dysregulation, a lot of fear as a little girl, a
Yeah.
very turbulent relationship with my father. And when I did stop drinking and I went on my sober chapter, which was from 38 to 40, and I did decide to stay alcohol free because it got too good. But in that time, like so many tests and so many situations came up, and I became so familiar with my body and all those parts of myself within my nervous system that were being activated that I was able
Mhm.
to link it back to my dad. And the same
Yeah.
feeling happens in my body, like a rush of anxiety that can also feel like excitement, is
Yes.
exactly it's exactly the same feeling that I've had when I've been in fear of my dad and I've needed to run away. And it rises within me. It's wild. And it was only because of being in close proximity with my dad again in England, being in a couple of situations with men that made me feel unsafe, and being able to link that all up. And I now really know that it does, true divine love does not feel like butterflies
Yeah.
and
It,
or any of that at
it,
all.
I remember a mentor being um, like you're the safety, like true love, true divine union is like safety in your nervous system. And I had a similar thing with growing up. It was like I was always on eggshells, fight and flight. And so I linked that with like, oh, this is what like a masculine man is supposed to be like. And it's like, red alert, red alert, something's up. And I'm like, oh, and then I learned that's not love. This is called a trauma bond. And there's a reason I was like magnetizing men. And I was like, I cannot tell you, Didi, how many like father healing things, like somatic father healing things and like recoding. I'm still doing it, recoding my nervous system to actually feel safe, like a safe man versus and realizing like that is like that's what true healthy love feels like versus like yeah the walking on eggshells and like I linked those
Yeah.
two
I
so
think what just came out for me then as well for anyone listening is that I want people to know as well that there is a middle way, because a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I coach and stuff as well, like it's
Mhm.
almost like you feel like there's all that excitement and like the butterflies and the chemistry, and then that's on say like the right hand side, and then on the opposite side of that people see like boredom and like not as like attracted or like not as excited and just all of that
Yeah,
stuff. So they feel like it's kind of like one or the other, but there's like 100 million% a middle way.
yeah, so you can have
Like,
both.
yeah, you can have both where it's like, well, no, because you don't have like, that wild kind of like feeling and like knots in your tummy or anything like that. It's just like this beautiful, calm, safe, like you said, safe. Pete, my partner, my fiance, should I say, he referred to it as a slow burn one time, which I was like, I don't know, but it's true. Like it is. It actually is, and it just like it deepens and it grows, and
Mm,
it's just the most gorgeous feeling ever. But I never knew that was actually a thing. It was kind of more one of
yeah,
the other for me
yeah,
for
it
a
was
really
like boring or like intoxicating. Like
yeah,
yeah,
essentially. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you again. And are you launching a course on this, or do you just like teach, you coach one-on-one? Because we'll drop your offer in the show notes.
Yeah, so I mean, so the business is sober chapters, and I did like a program on more about around taking a sober chapter, doing that in a work, which was like a
Yeah,
load of deep diving stuff into that. But then since I've been with Pete, it's become clearer and clearer, and I'm writing my book at the moment all around
yeah,
this. My number one reason, let's be honest, for doing the sober chapter, removing booze, was to attract in healthy
yeah,
love to this divine union, and that's what's happened. And so I'm in
mm,
this beautiful in between phase at the moment where I'm still doing the one-on-one coaching, but I'm
mhm,
also like really enjoying this like engaged era, like my kind of
yeah,
author era, all of that, because it's
yeah,
I've just had a guy come into my home after
yeah,
being on my own for 8 years, and I just want to enjoy all the juiciness of it. And
yeah.
so I know that, yeah, that's where it's going to go. And
Okay,
I'll be doing all of that on it as well.
okay, great. I'm like, you better be doing a course on this, or like, because I know you coach people. So we'll drop your info below if anyone feels the pull to work with Didi. Okay, sorry. Continue on the story.
So I think we got to, yeah. So I gave up alcohol on the 4th of July. I was like, I'm going to go all
Mhm.
in, call it my sober chapter. And that's exactly what I did. I just went like to absolute town. Like I up leveled in so many ways. Like I had a corporate career on the side as well. So I was kind of doing that alongside my coaching.
Yeah.
there was all these fears that I'd had as well, around like public speaking and, you know, all being vulnerable, essentially. Like that was a big thing, like those parts of myself that I've been hiding. And I started to realize like how much I'd unknowingly been masking stuff with booze
Yeah.
and like the social anxiety that I had and all
Yeah.
of that. So I just kept like moving forwards, like in, you know, direction of my biggest fears. And then, like I say, this kind of American pull was happening, and I was like starting to like see a lot of guidance to be in LA. Like it came in so many forms of so many things. And luckily I did have a spiritual coach at the time, because at times I thought I was going crazy with it.
I know
And
I've been there.
yeah, and it was kind of wild. I started, I didn't know if I was going to share this or not, but I think it's
Yeah.
obviously coming up for a reason. And about 8 months into my sober chapter, like I didn't even have Instagram. I wasn't even into all of that. Like I was quite
Yeah.
private. Again, fears of being seen and all of these things that I was
Yeah.
working through. And so I started my sober chapter page to like take people on the journey, because I knew deep down I was going to help people in that space. And I think it was like, I don't know, maybe like a week into that. And I had like a handful of followers, and I posted a video online. And I remember like connecting before I did it, and I was very much in my heart and shared from the heart. And I got this kind of message and a follow from a guy called Fernando. That's all I knew. And he wrote on the, you know, this on the video, he wrote a comment and said that he had lost his high school sweetheart at the age of 18, that she was shot, and died in his arms. And I was so kind of like overwhelmed, because I didn't, at that point, I didn't know if I could hold the space for that, you know,
Yeah.
trauma. And like it was new to me. It was my first public Instagram page, and I didn't feel qualified at that point to know what to do. But luckily, because of the work I had done on myself, like I managed to drop to my heart and like send him love and send him a message back. And then he messaged me the next day,
Mm.
and he was like just this beautiful man. Like there was like, it felt like there was very much a connection there, and I felt that I was meant to help him.
Yeah.
And I remember like I put my phone down on the side, and he'd sent me a voice note, and I played it, and I didn't know anything about him at this time. And this really deep, strong American accent came through the phone, and I got full body goosebumps all through me. And I just burst into tears. Like I literally fell on the floor and burst into tears. And I was like, what the hell was that? And I'd only ever had one experience like that before, which was maybe a year or two prior, when I got my house. I walked into my house, which I call my first spiritual experience. And again, I was sober at the time. And when that happened, I was like, holy shit, like I just thought it was confirmation I'm meant to be helping people in this space. But it went on
Yeah.
to be this like really deep emotional, spiritual connection from the other side of the world. And I now know, like we spoke about this, like he was like an absolute soul contract for me. And like it was such an
Yeah.
incredible journey to go on with this guy, because it was the first time, by doing these voice notes to the other side of the world, it was the first time I'd ever actually really like shown myself and been truly vulnerable with a man, and
Mm-hmm.
talked about my patterns, talked about my cheating that I'd done in the past,
Mm-hmm.
like talked through so much stuff. And he'd done a lot of work too. So he was able
Mm-hmm.
to talk in that language with me. And it just completely softened me. Like it really softened me. Like it was quite incredible, like how much it did for me. But he fell quite deeply in love with me. And the biggest thing was he was in LA as well, right? So he was in LA. I
Mm-hmm.
had all this guidance to be there. He was there. He wanted me to go over and see him. But I was also quite nervous, because I was like, I don't know if the physical attraction's there. Like I feel a deep emotional and spiritual connection here, but like I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to hurt this guy. Like plus this is
Mm-hmm.
super scary, like going to the other side of the world to see a guy that I've met online. Like it's kind
Yeah.
of crazy. But I think because I was sober, I trusted myself too. And I trusted the guidance, and I
Yeah.
trusted my intuition, and I like felt into it. And I did end up going and seeing him. But I also had got to the point where I knew that it probably wasn't about him, and it was actually about LA. And that was actually right. It was actually about LA. There was this like
Mm-hmm.
inexplicable pull there. And so I kept going. And yeah, very long story short, just over a year ago, September 2024,
Mm-hmm.
having been like on no dates that year, having had my biggest test ever, which will go back to the year
Yeah.
before, I went to LA, and I remained unattached to the outcome, but I just had this such a strong feeling that that trip was going to change my life. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a chance encounter with Pete at the Lewis House
Mm-hmm.
event. And it was just, yeah, it was like this beautiful conversation and connection around me being sober. He happened to be sober, and the rest is history from there, but we can talk about that in more detail. But
Yeah.
essentially, that's where it led me to. Yeah.
So
And he's now
beautiful.
my fiance. So,
Yeah.
yes.
And he's amazing and you're amazing. Oh, I just love you two so much. Your union, it's you're literally anchoring in these codes because he went on his own journey too. Like I remember like this is one of the things that I realized like with divine union, it's like both people kind of have to go on their own separate journeys to come together. Hello, beautiful souls. I am briefly interrupting this episode because I have to tell you about soul-led life. This is a 6-month journey to reclaim the timeline you were born to lead, to really become the creator and leader of your reality and in your community. We will go through many portals. I will be teaching many universal laws and guiding you through these portals of expansion to your highest timeline of prosperity, abundance, impact. And this path is also your most fulfilling path because it is the path your soul truly chose. You see, many people think that our soul chooses things and we just kind of have to like go with the flow. But the truth is, we have so many different choice points that we need to choose to align to the highest timeline. And the truth is that it's not always easy. In fact, it is usually the harder choice. So doing this hand in hand with myself and the most amazing community is really going to allow that support for you and the understandings of the recalibration, the decisions, the choice points, and the stepping into your power, your sovereignty, and your purpose that really activates this timeline. That's all I'm going to tell you. If you're interested, please check out the show notes. All the information is in there. And beyond the logic of, quote, what we're doing in that 6 months, I really want to invite you to trust your intuition. Does this feel in alignment, in resonance, versus all the deliverables that we're going to do? All I'm going to say is this will transform your life in the most powerful way. Trust the process. It will align you to the most fulfilling life that your soul is being pulled to. Not what you think is going to bring fulfillment because somebody else did that, walked that path, and that brought them fulfillment. What your soul is desiring. Tune into the frequency, tune into the resonance. So many people get stuck because they're trying to figure out if something's in alignment. Your soul knows, it can feel. So tap in and tune into that. If it's in alignment, I would love to see you in soul-led life. And if it's not, honor that. And I respect you for honoring that. I love you. Let's get back to the show. I'm so curious. The cheating part. Do you mind if I ask this?
No, go for it.
Okay. Because didn't you like that was like a self-protection? You made a comment once, and I can't remember what it was, but like what drove you to that behavior? Was it that heartbreak? And it was almost like you were protecting yourself. I can't remember what you shared with me.
Yeah, so when I got cheated on when I was actually 16. It was my first love from when I was 15 that it happened. And I was, because I've always been like, I'm a love bug. Like I've always loved love. I've always wanted a relationship. I've always wanted marriage forever, all of that. I always believed in it, but couldn't do it for some reason, couldn't do it. And I really loved him, like my first love, you know what that's like. And my best friend died in a car crash when I was 16, and it was just traumatizing. And he was my boyfriend at the time, and he had actually lost his brother 2 years before in a motorbike accident. So he wasn't able to give me anything. Like it completely triggered him. It brought so much up in him. Like we were kids, right? So he kind of like pulled back, and he ended up cheating on me at around that same time with another best friend of mine. Which like that, saying that out loud now, it's huge. But I just, like I said, I suppressed it all as being that much of a big deal years later. of course that set me on a
That's,
road to destruction. And so
yeah.
that was when I, said what I said earlier about, I was in bed for like 2 weeks, just in such like pain. And
Yeah.
um, just and then what I worked through with my coach years later is that our egos will either go to victim or go to revenge.
Yeah.
And I definitely went to revenge. And I
Yeah.
ended up hunting down and going out with pretty much as many of his friends as I could. And
Wow.
I've actually been so blessed that he's over in Australia now, all these years
Yeah.
later. And we reconnected when I was on this path of
Hmm.
everything that I went through. And he came up and he was actually going sober at the time. And we had like hour-long conversations around what happened all those years ago. And I feel so lucky for that. It was so, so, so healing. So
Yeah.
healing. He just said, like, I cheated on the wrong girl. Like, I never cheated ever
Yeah.
again in my life. He was like, you wrecked me. You wrecked all my friendships. Like, I was destructive, like, because of all of
Yeah.
that. So then I think that played out then in all patterns. So it was a protection. Yeah, for sure. It was a protection. But the worst thing was I hated myself for it because it didn't feel like it was truly me. Like, loyalty has always been a
Yeah.
huge thing for me. And yet,
Yeah.
like, I would sabotage and do that. I will say it was like normally at the end of a relationship that I would
Mhm.
do that. But what I know now is actually when things got harder and things were looking for me to go deeper and be more vulnerable and all of that, like it was
Yeah.
just essentially it was a coping mechanism. Like I would get drunk
Yeah.
and just, yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I had no idea that depth of it. Holy Toledo. That's all you've been through a lot. Wow. Um, do you think that's why? Because I've genuinely wondered this too. Like I had a couple, I had this pattern that I've shifted, but it was like my best friends would like hook up with a dude I was dating or like try and seduce like my partner. It actually happened with my ex from a couple of years ago. That was the last time. And I was like, I'm clearing this pattern, but like I could not understand why those women like, and I'm not triggered by it anymore. Like I'm just genuinely curious, like why, like how they could, the intention behind, um, like when women do that, like the intention behind, or even men, when men do that too, the intention behind the cheating, do you think it all comes from like revenge of something when they were like younger?
There's always something going on internally, right? Like there's always something going on. It's like that need for that external validation. Like when people aren't in
Mhm.
a good place, when they aren't grounded, like it's there's something there. I remember hearing, I went to a Tony Robbins event in 2018. That was actually kind of when it all sort of started for me.
Yeah.
When I was beating myself up a lot. There's another incident that happened on a flip side of that I can share in a minute, actually, to give context. But I was really had like quite a destructive relationship with myself. Like I really didn't like myself at this point because of some of the behaviors that I'd been doing when I was drinking. Um, and he said, like, I'd gone against some of my greatest values of loyalty, right? Like I always, like I'm a Taurus, like I've always been very, very loyal, like friends, family, everything. So I was confused. And he said that some people will, like humans will sometimes go against their greatest values to meet their like deepest needs,
Wow.
essentially. And I think, again, that is where alcohol can feel,
Yeah.
like if you've got
Yeah.
that strength and discipline to recognize it and catch it when you're sober. But I think when
Yeah.
you're drunk, it's a gateway,
Yeah.
because like on
Like you're
every
unconscious.
yeah, like on every level, like it shuts down your prefrontal cortex, which is like your ability to make rational decisions. And I'm
Yeah.
not giving excuses, but it's a
Yeah.
scientific reason for why these things
Yeah.
happen. It
100%.
also fuels your biggest like pain points or your unhealed parts of yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's so much to it. And ultimately, it's not really truly who you are. It's fueling the parts of you that
Yeah.
aren't you. It's not your truth.
Yeah.
And then you think it is. And so then you have this really horrible relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a separation and there's a massive separation between your ego and your divine. And
Yes.
that's been the journey that I've been on to just,
Yeah.
and to be able to forgive myself and have
Yeah.
compassion for myself. Like that is so, so important on that healing journey. And be
100%.
able to talk about it like this. Like I couldn't talk
Yeah.
about these things. I would not be able to speak about this, but it's so freeing to shine a light on all of it.
Yeah. Because shame lives in secrecy. And if
Yeah.
it's still like
Uh-huh.
if you're still in shame about it, if you're still in the pattern, it's like, yeah, it's like it's a cage.
Yeah, and I think that leads in really nicely to where it's at with Pete, right? Like,
Yeah.
all these things that happened in that initiation period was me being able to be vulnerable with men. I thank Fernando for that experience. I thank like so many men that came into my life in all
Mhm.
sorts of different ways where I was able to be vulnerable, because then when Pete and I connected, and we didn't get together straight away, we were living on the other side of the world. There was a situation he was going through his side that he
Yeah.
was working through, but the blessing of all of it, and I know this was, a complete divinely, intervened thing too, is that we were stuck on the other side of the world, so we did have
Yeah.
to build a friendship from the other side of the
Yeah.
world, and building that friendship and being vulnerable. And I told him about some of my biggest, deepest fears and patterns and
Yeah.
behaviors and everything from the past, and I've never done that before. Like, I have never
Yeah.
ever shown all of me before, and that is how I know he is my forever, and I'm not going to have those parts come up and
Yeah.
sabotage anymore. Yeah.
100%. That's so powerful. Okay, I have two questions that are coming through. So what were your biggest tests that you got initiated through on this path before you met Pete? Or if there, I don't know if there was any after you had met Pete before you guys were together, but yeah, what were the biggest tests that you got initiated through?
Okay, so I the biggest one for me that really stands out, and it touches on what you said earlier about, when a lot of boxes are ticked and things like that. And there was a guy in September 2023 that I started dating, and
Mhm.
he ticked so many boxes. I had got really clear on my non-negotiables. I'd got really, really clear on what I wanted my forever partner to be, and what I wanted us to be together. And so it was like no drinking, spiritual, like, like connection to God, like doing the inner work forever, like all these different things. And this guy like presented himself, and he ticked like a lot of these boxes. And I was like very physically attracted to him as well. But there was like this really strong knowing that he wasn't like my king, essentially. Like, he wasn't like really certain. Like, I didn't feel that he was like a leader. I didn't feel fully safe with him.
Yeah.
There was just a few things like that. And, luckily for me, because I had chosen to go celibate as well, and I
Mhm.
wasn't drinking, like, those like blurred lines didn't happen. And I didn't start to feel like all the, because when we exchange energy or have like, sexual intercourse with somebody, like we get completely, as women, like our hormones actually get attached to,
Yes, it's
it changes everything. It really changes everything. Yeah.
literally. We were talking about this on the call before we started rolling, but can we talk about the importance of like the purification journey and like because that was a big lesson for me. I've always been very conservative with that energy to the point that I've gotten gaslit by so many men that are like you're weird, you're crazy, and I learned a lesson not too long ago, which you know about, of like it doesn't even have to be intercourse, like any sort of like physical intimacy. It really, for me, it made it like foggy. My clarity was like not, and then I would start to like compromise, and I was like, well, maybe it's like I don't want to say not so bad. I don't want to say good or bad, but it was very much, it made things very confusing. Like I went from like this insane clarity, whole purification journey after my ex, uh,
Mm.
from like a couple years ago, and even with him, like I'm before we were intimate, it was I think at least 3 months, and I abandoned myself when I was intimate with him. He had just ignored me. I was just back in Sedona, and I thought I went there for masterclass. It was a soul reclamation. That's the first time we were like sexual with each other. And he had ignored me for this a week when he was like helping facilitate this training that I was in. Nobody knew we were together. And because it pulled on my wound, I abandoned myself. And so I went back there essentially to grieve that younger version of myself who was like naive. And I tried to break up with him. Like the next day I was like, I don't think this is it. Like I saw certain aspects of him, like this intense lust. And I was like, what? Because I didn't expect it from him, like that person. And it was like this Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation. And Like I would say like if I had actually held the boundary that I desired to, I wouldn't, we probably would have ended that relationship like way earlier, but becomes foggy and it becomes it's almost like this
It
intense.
knocks you off your power. It completely knocks you off your power,
Yeah,
essentially. Yeah.
yeah,
It knocks you off your power. It takes you out of that beautiful grounded, like it takes you out of your feminine, essentially, because it puts you much more into your like masculine, into a fear-based state, into more of like that controlling kind of like headiness, all of that. And it just takes you away from
yeah.
that trip, essentially. And then it's kind of like you're second guessing things and like the mind games and like the anxiety and all of that. Like it, yeah, it's a real thing. Like it's a real thing. And building that beautiful friendship first without any of that. Like, because that gives you time to work out if that person really is the person or not,
Yes.
right?
Have deeper discernment. And I remember, like, I see why I like joke sometimes. I'm like, I'm a born again Christian. I say God now, Didi. I say God. I'm like, God, God. So I used to only say source. And
Yeah.
so we had a conversation for everybody, like about like this fear of saying God. And I would like say it in like my inner circles or like my private clients or like my really close friends, but I had this shame of like public saying it. Now I'm saying it everywhere. And I pray to Jesus every day, and it is great. Um, so I just wanted to share that. But I see why Christians talk about the purification journey and celibacy. And so there, in my perception, like they're correlated, but they're not necessarily like the same thing. Like the purification journey isn't just being celibate, it's like letting go of these manipulative aspects run by a wound, these aspects of like, of essentially anything that disconnects us from God and the innocence
Yeah.
of who we are. And then the celibacy is obviously not sharing that sexual energy with a partner. Um, until like, I mean, some people do it until it's a devoted relationship, some people do it till it's marriage, but can you speak more to that? Like the reason you did it was to keep your discernment, to keep in your power. We've never actually had this conversation, so again, I'm like genuinely curious.
With the
uh,
celibacy thing.
yeah, like what made
Yeah.
you choose to go celibate, and how has that been different um in your relationship with Pete versus like the other men in the past?
Yeah, it's been a journey. I never ever thought that it would be the journey that I took. Like genuinely, like I remember hearing about people that did this years ago, and I was just like, what on earth? Like that's wild. But it's kind of like, when you get into this world and then it's kind of like you start to realize that like things are being shown to you and you start to recognize that people are coming into your life for a
Yes,
reason. There's no
yes,
coincidence, anything. And it's like suddenly, and like the more aware you become and the more it's like, wow, okay, okay. And so, I call them expanders. Like, I had so many beautiful
yes.
expanders in my life. I was doing a lot of work with a lot of different people and, all in these beautiful relationships that I wanted and I knew I wanted. And that was really healthy to be around that. But I made a decision during my sober chapter that, like, obviously it was about, attracting and healthy love. And it almost started off as a joke. I said, the next person I sleep with will be my husband. Like, that's how it started.
Yeah.
And, people used to be like, people from like almost like my old life or what have you. Like, a lot of people have transitioned with me, but a lot of people haven't. And people were kind of like, oh, yeah, whatever. Right. And, and then, kind of like months went by. And I tell you what, like, actually, being celibate and starting to stand in my truth with that and my power with that. Because I was nervous to start with about sharing that with men, but then that was almost the same with sobriety. But then what I realized was it was actually a bloody great filter to work through, because
Oh
if
yeah.
somebody is not interested in you because you don't drink or you're not going to have sex with them, pretty cool way of realizing they're not your person. Like, that's a pretty
100%.
great gift, right? It's like, well, cool, okay,
100%.
like that's it.
Yeah.
um yeah, and it became actually really empowering. I ended up feeling more empowered by that than I did about the non-drinking in the end. I was like, no, this is good. Like, this feels awesome. And then going into that last guy that I just mentioned, that was my biggest test. What happened with him was that I knew he wasn't my person, and luckily, he knew I was celibate and I wasn't drinking, but it was almost like new life, old life, like making the decision to not be with him, even though he ticks so many of my non-negotiables. I heard from someone once that the ones that tick nearly all of them are the hardest, because like you're trying to like convince yourself that it's okay to settle with that person and that actually maybe you're not going to get every single one with somebody else. But like I
Yeah.
say, this really strong knowing. And because I hadn't slept with him, I didn't muddy those waters and I remained in my power. And when I broke it off with him, he would turn up at my door with like a roast chicken and try and like hang out with me. And like he lived around the corner. And I was like, I was lonely at the time. I'd been on my own for a long time. But like
Yeah.
was like, no, he's not the one. And because of the fact that I was celibate and not sleeping with him, like it was so much easier to break it off. And I was so grateful because I was like, had I been drinking, I would have then slept with him. If I had slept with him, I would now be in a relationship with somebody who was never ever going to meet my needs truly, and he wasn't going to be my forever. And then I would have missed out 9-10 months later on meeting Pete. Right.
100%.
Like it's so now it's like that, that celibacy, I owe so much to that. And that's what I share. And that's why I shout about it, because I know my path would have looked very differently if
Yeah.
I hadn't done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what you said about when they check so many, and it's like there's a quote that I love. It's like you have to be willing to risk something great for what you know is out there, for like exceptional or full alignment. And I think this is like in any area of life, it's the hardest. It's those hardest moments where it's like this is like really great in a lot of ways and amazing, but it's like not a full yes. And when we say yes to that, we compromise what's possible. It's like the other timelines kind of shut down. It's like, okay, she's settling for this.
Mm-hmm.
And like not exclusive to relationship, like in any area, but definitely with relationship. So I had a question that came through.
And it's that whole, it's like short-term pain, long-term gain. Like that's
I
massive.
literally
Massive.
did, I did a live today on a program I'm launching called Soul Led Life. And I was talking about like holy provision, like when God becomes the provider. And anyways, and how God funds missions, not like people get paid, but missions are funded. Anyways, I literally said in this transmission, what did I say? I said easy, it's like the easy choice equals a hard life, and a hard life, or no, hard choice equals an easy life. So it's like short-term gratification for like long-term loss. Or
Totally. And another amazing one just came up for me then, and I've just written about this in my book, is that
yeah,
the pathway to heaven feels like hell, and the pathway to hell
yes,
feels like heaven.
yes, yes, yes.
Literally.
That's like my soul is like, oh,
Yeah.
that's the
Totally.
spiritual path.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Totally.
in divine union, entrepreneurship, money, health, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I wake up every day and work out. In the moment, I don't always want to just like, go to the pool or go for a jog or go lift weights. But like, I know I feel so good after. I know I perform at my highest. And it's that I think we have it so backwards with like fast food type vibe. Like, I need everything right now. And it's like, well, we forgot about like natural law. We forgot that things like the compounding effect. Like it's like we've forgotten all these things. And it's like when we get quick fixes like sugar, dopamine rushes, it, it's yeah, it'll feel good for a moment. And then eventually like it'll wear off. And eventually you don't, it's like, oh, it's like that sugar rush that like it's not nurturing, it's not nourishing. And I've started to look at like, like on this on this journey to like aligning to divine union, I started to look at it like that. Okay, like this thing might feel good for the moment, but how am I going to feel after? Even like hanging out with this person, like, am I going to feel nurtured after, or is it going to be like a sugar rush and then I'm like having anxiety? And even like with this celibacy thing, I want to add like our sexual energy is so powerful. Like it is like so powerful that like we can use that and channel it into like a mission or a business. And like I notice like when I'm like when I'm like not sharing that energy with somebody, anytime I've shared it with somebody who wasn't fully in alignment, it's drained me so much. And it's
Mm.
like everything else in my life does not go well. But when I just have it's like, well, we're meant to create. We're meant to, whether that's like we're birthing a baby or birthing a business or a mission or amazing friendships. It's like now we have that energy to like direct towards like something that's important to us. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that so many women, we're not taught this. It's just something I realized in my own life of like, oh, I can act.
Yeah, and yeah, you make a really great point with that. And it actually leads into, like, for me, I think one of the biggest shifts on that journey and with the sober chapter and building sober chapters and all of that was that it was the first time I became so much on that in that process. Like I became deeply proud of the person that I was, the people that I was serving, like my mission. And I'd never had that
Yeah.
before. And I was just like channeling so much into that. And there was so much I was learning myself about the way, so along the way, and so much I was healing. And that mission driven business, Sober Chapters, was actually what literally led me to Pete, because we connected over being sober. I shared my story from my heart, like vulnerably, the first time I met him. And like I could actually see his jaw had like pretty much dropped.
Wow.
Like he was just like, wow. He said, like, wow, I was meant to meet you today. It was
Yeah.
just the most powerful. And but it's like you need that as a woman. You need, again, I remember something really, really powerful that when I was doing some of these really deep transformation events that I do with the community here. And I was
Yeah.
going there to work on my patterns, and I was on that journey probably around the age of 36 at this point. And I remember
Mhm.
with the guy that runs it calling me out, and he just said, if you keep acting like a princess, you'll continue to attract princes. And I was just
Yeah.
like, holy shit. And I was waiting to be rescued. And I think a lot of women are waiting to be rescued. And you have to
Yeah.
fucking get in the driver's seat of your life and rescue yourself.
Nobody.
Whatever.
Didi, I have goosebumps. I literally said that on my live today too. I said, nobody can save you. Nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like there's this, I don't know where this comes from, but like I think in humanity, it's like everyone's looking for a savior. And it's like we are the ones we've been waiting for. And like, yes,
Mhm.
God and source, but like a quote I always say is God helps those who help themselves. It's like if we're gonna do certain behaviors, like say somebody's gonna go and like just like do a bunch of like cocaine on the weekend, or what's that drug where you inject it into you? I had a spiritual teacher say this once.
All right.
Heroin, but you're like, I want a
Yeah.
better life, and you're gonna go do that. Like God's like, no, you don't, because your actions aren't in alignment. So like I'm not gonna save you, you know. I have a
Mm.
friend who she was like a hardcore alcoholic for years. I met her after this. She's been sober for like, I think it's 7 years or something. But I said she had been in rehab so many times and nothing shook her until one moment. I said, what was, you'd been in and out of rehab and like you kept um um going back to it. I forgot that word. But and I said, what changed it? And she said, when my parents, I was in a hotel room, I literally had no money. I couldn't get up. She was so messed up. Um, and they were like, we're not coming to save you this time. If you can get to our state, you can stay here 100% sober, but we're not saving you, because they'd saved her over and over and over again. And that moment she chose herself. And I don't even know how she got to her parents. But that was the last day she ever had alcohol, she ever did drugs. It was like, oh, nobody's coming to save me. Like I have to choose.
Mm.
So yeah, I so agree with that quote. Um, okay, so the purification journey, or sorry, celibacy. So it takes, this is so fascinating. I never looked at it in that way. I didn't realize that it, yeah, it makes sense. I knew about the emotional connection. I knew that it kind of like tied you to people for sure. And like on an energetic plane, I mean, our souls are merging from, did you know the moment we kiss somebody, our souls merge with theirs? Isn't that bonkers?
Yeah, I saw something about 7 years to untangle from an intimate
Yes. So
connection.
there's practices because there's an arc line between our breasts and there's one between the shoulders. But for women have two. So the one between the breasts is for women as well. The one across the shoulders, like this, is women and men. But it's because when they're breastfeeding, they want the baby to feel that like the masculine energy, that protector, provider, right? In their energy field. So we carry it because we're not meant to be with multiple people. So like that's not how God designed us. So we carry it for 7 years after. Um, And there's ways to clear it through that arc line. I've done it with I haven't been with that many people, but I've done it with every partner I've had. And it's like you'll feel emotions, you'll feel their energy like literally leaving. But it's a lot of energy to do the clearing. And it's a lot of yeah, I remember doing it with my ex and I would start to feel sick. And it was so weird because anytime I would do it, I think I did it about 11 times. It takes you're supposed to do it for 11 minutes. There's a process before that you do and after as well, but I would feel so nauseous. It was like all because we become the other person, and it was all because there was a lot of deception, and I won't go into the details, but all of this energy that was his that was entangled with mine, I started to clear. And every single time we went no contact, but every single time after he would message me, even though I was like, and I just like wouldn't respond, but it was like he could literally feel like he was like trying to grasp on. But yes, it's 7 years we carry that in our energy field. It's
Mm.
crazy. And it like affects who we're attracted to and it affects our habits and all of these things. Um, yeah. So was it your spiritual teacher who told you about celibacy, or like what was like, yeah, I'm gonna be celibate now? Because you said you thought it was like bonkers, and then
Yeah, like I say, I was like kind of started to say like the next person I sleep with is going to be my husband. Like I just knew that that's
yeah,
what I wanted it to be, and then I started to believe that. Like I started to really believe that. It seemed a bit wild and a bit far-fetched to start with,
yeah.
and then
So
I was like, no, and then it became empowering. And then, like I say, with the guy that I cut it off with, I
yeah,
put that down to being celibate, and so I valued it on such a higher level. And then I became deeply proud of it. Like I deeply proud of it. And I
yeah,
remember like when I was in LA and I'd met Pete and we were just friends at the time, connecting, and we all like, went out for dinner. And I remember saying it out loud that like I was celibate, and I realized it was something to be really revered. Like it was like a really beautiful thing.
yeah,
And I had to keep tuning into it because I'm not religious. I'm not religious. I wasn't doing it for
yeah,
religious reasons, but I was doing it. There's a
yeah,
filter there's a filter that I started to run through, which I think is a really, really valuable one for anyone to use. And it's like when you're thinking about dating a guy or taking action on something or feeling into something in general, it's like, is this XYZ going to bring you closer to or further away from God,
yeah,
essentially? And it's such a great way to do that filtering. And it suddenly became about so much more than abstaining. It just felt like deeply in my body, it felt like the right thing. It was just like, this is what I'm meant to do.
yeah,
And so Pete and I officially got together. He came over in February and we fell deeply in love, and he decided back then that he was going to move here from Canada. He now lives here and we're
yeah,
engaged. It's like, oh my goodness, that the difference a year can make is wild. So again, anyone that's like hoping, thinking it might not
yeah,
happen, it will happen. Like it will happen. So it's just been incredible.
yeah,
But we, had that conversation really early on. He obviously had known
yeah,
that I was celibate. He didn't know that I was waiting until marriage.
yeah,
And that was a really hard thing to try and talk about, like at the really early stages, right?
yeah.
And but then he kind of like worked out that that was the case. But we have both talked about, he's just walking down the stairs now.
I
We've
think,
both, we've both talked about like so many times, like how we're so grateful that we made that decision to wait
yeah,
until marriage, because
wow,
there's been so many situations where, we're very lucky. Like we've both done a lot of work. So we're able to really communicate in real time about what's going on for us, our triggers, our patterns, like everything. So it's create this really like real depth.
yeah,
But there's been so many times where we're like, had we have been having sex, like we would have just been putting a band-aid on something, and we wouldn't have actually like gone to the depths of what we needed to go to clear
yeah,
this, and
yeah.
probably would have just like washed over it, had sex, and then there would have been residue of resentment left.
Oh my goodness. That literally happened to me with my ex from a couple years ago. And it was because we got a place together in Florida. Like we had the whole vision, you know what I mean? And obviously it was not fully in alignment. And it was not in full alignment. Even though I tried to like convince myself for so long, but that it was like I would bring things up. It was like the same pattern every 2 weeks, and I would call things out, and then we would get in this like confrontation. Like, I don't want to say an argument because it wasn't always an argument, but nothing ever got resolved. And then we would just make love. And then I was like, okay, it's fine. But then it would come again and it would be more intense the next time. It was every almost to the clock every 2 weeks. He actually like, he's like, this happens almost every 2 weeks. I'm like, because nothing has come to resolution. And yeah, it can be, I mean, some people get caught in that pattern, like, sorry about my French, but like the fight to fuck. And it's not, it's not healthy. Like it's not, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that actually could have just been showed a very big misalignment if we had dealt with it and I like had just cut it. And it's so crazy. It was like the moment stuff started revealing, I was like, that was the moment I truly feel like and I'm also not like religious, like, but I am so God led and I like truly devoted to God. And I was like, I'm only available for like divine love. I made this declaration. I said, I am devoted to union. No, I'm devoted to love. I'm devoted to union. And he was third on the list. I am not available for thwarted energy, manipulation, or distortion. And my whole energy field shifted. He felt it. It was right after I processed all these like past versions of myself and I just saw all the memories. And um I got sick. I literally puked that version of myself out is at this retreat. And he went, and then I made that declaration, not knowing what I was doing, signing up for it. He went and showered, everything shifted between us. And then all the cracks in the foundation just started to illuminate until eventually it dissolved. It couldn't live anymore because it was birthed on manipulation. I didn't know that at the time. And manipulation can only be met with manipulation. And he did shift a lot. Like I initiated him up a lot, but then the time to face your deepest shadows comes. And in my experience on this journey, like we have to face those aspects of ourselves and like really look at them and be like, okay, like this is like integrate that. It's no longer going to write my story. Like I was so manipulative years ago. Like a few years ago, even getting into that relationship, and I didn't realize it. It was with men specifically. Like it was from a deep wound, but like when it was birthed in that, like that bond needed to break. And it was a crazy wild experience. But yes, that makes so much sense because I honestly think I see this with some of my friends where it's like something's not in alignment or something comes up and people get deeply wounded and then they just make love and then it's like, okay, let's just ignore that until it comes up again. And it always does.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been dealt with. So that's like very powerful and very beautiful. Okay, to finish up here, what are the last things, if anything, you would like to share with the audience about your story, about the journey, any inspirational like pieces where you're like you already said, like, don't give up, like what so much can change in a year, so much can change in a year, but what are the last pieces that you wish to share with them?
Yeah, there's so much. Hey, there's so much. I would say just get really, really, really clear on what you want and quite literally say no to every single thing that isn't that. And don't let anybody say that you're being too fussy.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that told me that I needed to compromise and that I was looking for a unicorn. And I literally found the unicorn 18,000 kilometers away and had a chance meeting. But, get really, really clear
Yeah.
on what you want, but make sure that is in line with your truth and
Yeah.
not in line, with more that sort of egoic requirement. And, I used to be like, oh, tall, dark, handsome and da da da. Like, make sure it's something that's really in alignment with who you want to be in your future, who you want to serve, what you want to build together in union with God. And,
Yeah.
look through your list and ensure that you're actually that person. Like, is that who you truly are? Are you acting in alignment with what you truly
Yeah.
want in somebody?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the alignment with Pete and I has been insane. And I
Yeah.
know, and that's actually what's made our relationships, it was such a knowing so early on, and it makes it so much easier because we're so in alignment. But it's because we, both got sober, both did all that work, both knew what we really, 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 truly wanted. And then we were able to attract that in. And
Yeah.
like, that's so important. And
Yeah.
just completely surrender to what and when and how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Just feel into the energy of how it feels and live your life like that. And, enrich your life so much. Focus on your own mission. Be open. Don't be like, totally like, oh no, I'm, little Miss Independent, like I'm okay on my own. Like be
Yeah.
open, like definitely be open,
Yeah.
have your heart open, but like surrender to the timing, what it's going to look like, and just keep that trust and that faith that
Yeah.
only something beautiful is going to come into your life, because that's all that you're going to let
Yeah.
happen. You're not going to let anything else happen. So it's going to be
100%.
something amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Like I just keep hearing when you say the truth, like the truth of your soul, like what does your soul really want? Because I think sometimes our ego or our mind or even our wounds like think we want this XYZ or programming, right? But it's like, what's the truth of your soul? And the last piece I want to just kind of like highlight, because this for me was like a little bit confusing for a while until I was like, oh, I get it. And well, yeah, I'll share that in a second. But the like when we're like you said, don't say no to everything that isn't fully in alignment. And like the reason we chatted about is that it distorts the signal. It's like you're saying you want something and your soul's desiring that, but then you're settling for this other thing. Like the moment we open our field to like in this like with divine union, what we're talking about right now, to something that is not that but could be close to that. It's like some people I think have the perception they can have that situationship or that they can date that person until their other person comes in. But with the laws of the universe, it actually like blocks it blocks the other person because there's no space for it. There's no space.
Space for it. Like, well, the thing is as well, like, I have to counteract it. And you know this too, like everyone's on their own unique journey, right? All I can do, like I believe whoever is listening to this for a reason and will resonate with parts of my
Yeah.
story. Right? And all I can do is share my story with this. But what actually happened to me and what was the reason that I was so firm in actually cutting it off with the last person that I had seen before Pete that year before was because I was being mentored by an incredible woman called Taryn, Queen Collective. If anyone wants to follow her, she's insane. And she was like, actually, we were chatting, and she turned around and she said, "Well, how many of your needs are being met right now by this guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, like to be honest, a few are. Like, he was like helping me out. He was like turning up and doing things at the house for like,
Yeah.
like." I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, like a few of them are actually. And she was like, yeah, right. And she said, and how much of like your field and space do you think he's like taking up? She said,
Yeah.
because you're not allowing for that divine masculine energy to come in. Like there's no space
Yeah.
for him.
There's space.
And it was just like, holy shit, like he's got to
Yeah.
go. Like I'm not.
Literally.
And I was the girl that for years wanted to be like, I had this, like, I used to write in my journal, can I have fun with Mr. Wrong whilst I'm waiting for Mr. Right? Like it was a really hard battle because it's like, who wants to
Mhm.
be really on their own for a long time? Like it's hard, right? But it's also the most powerful thing that you can ever do. If you can fall in love with your life in solitude, like it's just, it's so
Yeah.
powerful because it sets you up so well for the union when it comes in as
Yeah.
well, because
Yeah.
you're so much secure, so much more securely attached when you
Yeah.
have got that place of peace on your own.
100%.
So yeah.
And that was like the piece on the I mean, there was so much, but the biggest piece when we went on that beach walk that you shared. And I was like, I had to like really look at my life and it was hard. And I failed a couple, I don't want to say failed, but I learned the lesson more than
Yeah.
once. And I remember like, I think I shared this with you before we started rolling, but for the audience, there was this moment because there was like a kind of a similar thing that checked a lot of boxes and was like great and not it, but and I'm like, oh well, maybe I can just like be in this, but not, and then but still be open. But like deep down, I knew I couldn't. And I remember finally I was like, okay, like I am just like I'm distancing from this. I'm like not allowing this person in my field, not even via like text. Like I had to stop responding, stop answering calls. And And it was hard because a lot of my needs were definitely getting met. And I prayed, and I'll share this prayer with you all if anybody's in a similar situation. I said, like, God, like, I'm making this choice. And well, I actually prayed to Jesus because it's like the funnel to God. But anyways, and I said, please show me that I'm on path. Like, I don't need you to bring my person in right now. Like, if that's meant to be, great, but show me I'm on path. And then I met somebody else who's like so much more in alignment in so many ways. Is he my person? I don't know yet. I don't know. But it was like God being like, okay, you're on path. Like, and it's so crazy because I teach this stuff in terms of like manifestation and like soul path and like business. And for some reason, I forgot about it. And that's where I just didn't want to look at it. And then you, beauty, get dropped in my life. And we're like on this walk. And I'm like full on goosebumps and like spiritual awakening. And I'm like, oh no, I know exactly what I need to do. And it was hard. It was hard. And then it was a little bit. But when I finally made that choice, it was like, okay, I get that. I got the code like dropped in. It dropped in. And yeah, it dropped in.
I love that. And I'm very blessed that we got to meet. I had such an amazing time. And I'm just thinking, like, as you're over there, like doing your travel, and I'm down here in Australia, I'm like, oh, we have to have a reunion at some point in LA. Like,
Yes.
I still, even though I've met Pete and I know he was the reason I was being drawn there, I still feel like the story of LA hasn't finished yet. There's something
100%.
more.
I can
And I
feel
don't know what that looks like. And it's exciting. And yeah, you just get little bits shown to you at a time. That's all that allows us to see. Yeah, we'll get some folded little by little.
I agree. Like, well, I was in Orange County with Nicole. And I brought back all these memories and I was like, this is so beautiful. So yes, reunion in LA at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, Didi, I love you so much. Where can people find you? We'll link it in the show notes, but if they feel the pull to work with you, also, okay, well, your book, you're in the middle of writing it. Let me know when that's
writing it. So my Instagram and my business, well, my Instagram's sober_chapters. And it's got everything on there, like all the programs, coaching. I have quite a few guides and things like that as well. And then I'm writing the book at the moment. So I'm actually on chapter 6, starting chapter 7, and the published date or the launch date is September the 11th next year.
You do have it. Okay. I was like, am I like asking too soon? Okay. Oh my God. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So it's, that in itself has been, quite the up leveling, writing a book, like the fears it's a lot, but it's amazing. And I know it's meant to be out there in the world. So yeah,
I'm so excited to read it. I just went to my other friend's book launch a couple of days ago, and I'm just like, all the like, I'm just like all of these codes being shared with the world that are like so potent and so powerful. They need to be shared. And a book is such a profound and amazing way. And I'm so excited to read it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Claudia.
Hello, Sacred Soul. I hope you loved that episode. And if you did, I would so appreciate if you could share and tag me on the social medias at Jill Alana Nixon. And if this brought you value, I would be eternally grateful if you could leave a 5-star review. And if you did, take a picture and email it to teamjillalananixon@gmail.com, and we will gift you a free cord cutting soul revival mini activation, a Jai activation. Put that in the show notes, the email, and thank you so much. We will see you again next week on the Prosperity Portal podcast.